Hi all, let's see how to add SSR Auth to an Astro project using Supabase's SSR package and Astro Actions. First things first, we'll do some basic definitions. You can jump straight to the tutorial using the timestamps provided below. Supabase is an open source as a service that builds upon Postgres. It provides common key features like authentication, real-time, and storage. It offers a hosted version and also a self-hostable version, and I will link to a video that talks a little bit more about Supabase. Astro is a UI-agnostic web framework. By default, it can be used with any UI framework, including Astro client components. Astro Actions allow you to write server-side functions that can be called without explicitly setting up API routes. Out of the box, it provides many useful utilities and it simplifies the process of running server logic. Astro Actions can be called from both client and server environments. Server-side rendered auth. First, to handling authentication on the server. It's typically a cookie-based method. The server creates a session, stores a session ID in a cookie that is sent to the client. The client, typically the browser, receives the cookie, automatically includes it in future requests so the server can use it to determine if the user is authenticated. Browsers cannot modify HTTP-only cookies and servers cannot access local storage. You have to be careful about the planning and usage of SSR authentication to avoid security risks like stealth sessions and just someone hijacking your entire session. When it comes to how authentication was done in traditional single-page applications like React apps or Vue app, you'll handle authentication on the client side because they don't have direct access to server. SPA will typically use JWTs that are stored in local storage, cookies or session storage, and then when the application needs to communicate with the server, it sends these tokens in the HTTP headers. For example, if your React application is consuming an API and the API requires for you to authenticate with it, you'll go through the API docs and generate your tokens or the necessary information you need to authenticate with that API. Then your React application will now be sending any requests to that API. It will include this JWT or this token in the headers. In this paradigm, the client and the server is very clearly separated and it's a little bit easier to understand the concept. To get started, we'll need a Supabase account. You just follow the prompts to create a project, and then under the authentication tab, you will enable sign in, sign up, and you will also enable email as an auth provider. On the front end setup, we'll need to create an Astro project. You can use any of your preferred IDEs or text editors. I'm still stuck on VS Code. In an integrated terminal, we'll run this command to run an Astro project. Follow the provided prompts and choose a basic template. When it's done, you get into the folder and run this command to install your dependencies and then run the dev sub. You will need to set Astro to run in SSR mode by defining the function in astro.config.mjs. You will add output server. Then we'll need to add an adapter to create a server runtime. We are going to use Node.js for this example. Run this command to set it up. Finally, we'll need Tailwind for styling. You can run this command to add Tailwind. Follow the prompts and it will make the necessary changes. At the end, your astro.config.mjs file should look like this. You need to set up Supabase SSR. In an integrated terminal, you paste this command that will install the Supabase.js client library and the SSR Auth package. The Supabase SSR Auth package is a framework agnostic package that works across all the server-side rendered frameworks like Next, Next.js, and Astro. We'll create an env file. You'll paste your Supabase URL and the unknown key. You can get them from here. Note that in Astro, all environment variables meant to be accessed on the client side need to be prefixed by public. But in this case, we'll be using Astro Actions which run on the server, so we don't need the prefix. Next, create a library folder in the source folder and add a supabase.ts file. Paste this code into it. So stepping through the code, this sets up Supabase to handle cookies in a server-rendered application, and it exports a function that takes in the request and cookies object. The function is set up like this because Astro has 3 ways to access request and cookie information. Through Astro's global object, which is only available in Astro pages. Through Astro API context object, which is only available in Astro Actions. Through API context, which is a subset of the global object and is available through API routes and middleware. So the create client function accepts the request and cookies object separately to make it flexible and applicable in the different contexts in which it may need to be used. Let's create a middleware.ts file. You have to make sure it's in the source folder for this to work in Astro. Then let's now go through the code. So this file checks if there's an active user when you're on the protected route. If there is no user, it will redirect back to the main page or the index page. If there is an active user, it will allow the request to continue as is. So this will protect the protected route, probably bad naming, from unauthenticated access. Finally, we need to set up the UI to be able to test this. In the pages folder, we'll replace the contents in the index.astro file with this, and just stepping through the code, we have a simple layout that has a form that takes in the user's email and a button that triggers a sign-in action. The front matter creates a Supabase server client. If we do not have an active user, it redirects back to the main page. This works because the front matter runs on the server and the project is set to server to SSR mode. The template displays a simple form. For this to work, we need to add some JavaScript, which is what is in the script tags at the bottom below the layout. Stepping through this code, this adds some vanilla JavaScript that calls the sign-in action on form submit, provides user feedback through the alert, and manages the button's text and disable state. This effectively adds client-side interactivity to the page. Finally, we add a protected.astro file in the pages folder. Stepping through this code, the page gets a user data server-side in the front matter as before and displays it in the template along with the sign-out button. The sign-out button calls sign-out action, provides user feedback, and sets button state just as in the index.astro page. Finally, we need to add action. We add actions folder in the source folder and create an index.ts file to hold our logic. Stepping through this code, ideally, we will separate the sign-out and sign-in into separate actions, but for this example, we'll just use one file. The action takes both the sign-in and sign-out methods. A Supabase server instance is created in the sign-in method. The magic link method is used to sign in. It passes a redirect URL we are going to create later and handles errors. The sign-out method calls Supabase's sign-out function and handles any potential errors. The redirect URL refers to an API route that extends the code from the email Supabase sends for a session. This is hinting at the Pixie authentication flow. Your provider, in this case Supabase, will send you an email in the case of magic links or even auth authentication methods. It will put a code inside the link that will usually redirect you. The application is meant to grab that code and exchange it for a token. So this protects in the case that the email or the link is intercepted or messed up with. It doesn't actually contain a session. User data is safe and it enhances security in that regard. In the pages folder, add an API folder and create within it extend.ts file. Paste this into it and just going through the code. This is now the very simplified version of the Pixie authentication flow. It just grabs the code from the URL in the magic link send, creates a server client, calls the exchange code for session Supabase function, passing the code to it, then handles any error by redirecting to Astro's not found page. Otherwise, it will redirect to the protected page and Supabase will handle the session implementation details. We are now ready to test the app. In an integrated terminal, run the app and you shall see your sign-in page. If you try to access a protected page, it will redirect you back to this view until you sign in. Once you sign in, you should get an email with a link that will redirect you to the protected page. In that case, you should see your user ID and a sign-out method. With that, the project now uses Supabase SSR and is set. I'm going to link in the description below notes and resources related to SSR, Astro, and Supabase, along with a link to the full example repository. If you found this useful, please leave a like. If you have feedback, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.